I don't care how many overtimes it takes, preferably none. Just go 1-0 against Illinois this week. Grab your pencil and your paper. It's the obligatory PSU pregame show. All right, welcome back, everybody, to the obligatory PSU pregame show. We are, as we are all season, at the We Are in Philipsburg, Pennsylvania. You like that?
I did.
Yeah, thanks very much. Great place to stop by when you are on your way into town for Penn State football games. Still some rooms available here for the home football weekend, so check that out. You can go to their website, thewearein.com. You can get one of the best cheesesteaks in Happy Valley. We're going back and forth, maybe a little battle, one side of the mountain versus the other with the folks at Anti-Fragile, but definitely stop by the We Are in cheesesteak stand when you're at Beaver Stadium attending a Penn State home game. And boys, this one has gotten pretty big pretty quickly after that win the Illini had in Lincoln last weekend.
Yeah. It was a crazy win. I mean, overtime's always crazy, but I think it will set this game up really well.
Surprised?
Yeah, no.
Yes or no?
No, I'm not surprised. No, I like Illinois all the way. You know,
all the way.
No, he already has his head in judging the Penn State homecoming.
Yep.
Oh, that's right.
He's trying to remember who bribed him most.
Yeah, that's true. Legendary campus icon.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Illinois under Bielema is really trying their best to bring back the middle tier of the Big Ten, which has not existed in like 4 years. So
please do. By the way,
absolutely.
Yeah. I was surprised. I really thought that, and we didn't really know much about Nebraska, right? They hadn't really played anybody, and I think Colorado, a bit of a sideshow, right? And
bad offensive line, bad defense.
Terrible. And so the Nebraska, I think, was a little bit maybe not overhyped, but I think people felt they were maybe a little bit better than they were. So I think that Illinois going in there, they're kind of in the middle of the Big Ten, right? And no one really knows what that is right now. It's so early in the season, so we're going to find out obviously on Saturday. You know, when they play. You know, in that environment, you know, with whiteout energy or whatever we've been talking about all week. You and I at least didn't get the memo, apparently.
We got
I know, right?
I'm wearing your rose.
Yeah, I know. I appreciate that. And I think this shirt is from like 2005 because it really smells. So, I'm
sitting next.
It was a good win. It was a good win for Illinois, and it helps us in big picture, right? They come in here. It's a night game. It's on TV. I know there's some competing games that some people will watch, but it's two ranked opponents. It's a big game. It's homecoming. It's all those things. It's right how you want to start your Big Ten season.
It's kind of surprising to me. So I knew going into the season their quarterback was Luke Altmaier. He was their starter last year, and I think maybe 2 years, but definitely last year. Michael, I'm a terrible gambler, but I have made a ton of money in my life off of Luke Altmaier. I used to, if you ever go on the gambling apps, you take the button, whoever Illinois was a dog to, I would take whatever team they were playing and I would move the line all the way as far as I could get it to go, minus, because Luke Altmaier was horrendous. Like good for 3 to 5 turnovers a game, usually closer to 5.
4 picks versus Penn State last year.
Yeah, he was one of the worst quarterbacks in football, and he was just a blast to bet against. And but somehow this year, kind of like our quarterback, he's turned over a new
leaf. Figured it out.
We're playing Luke Altmaier and Connor Beaslak, and all of a sudden they're looking like competent quarterbacks. Did not have that on the bingo card going into the season, Michael.
What scares me, you say how bad he is. You also said how bad the Bowling Green quarterback.
That's what I just said, Beaslak. But both of them are playing great now.
Yeah, I know.
Yep. Bowling Green actually looked kind of good.
But
So if you want to look at results around the country that probably helped Penn State.
Yeah.
Bowling Green hanging in and being one onside kick away from having a shot versus Texas A&M in College Station. That helped us out.
Yep, absolutely.
Illinois coming in here undefeated. Look, but Kansas may stink.
Yep.
Nebraska may not be very good. Doesn't matter. You talked about there may not be a lot of people watching our game on television. There's a little thing called Alabama, Georgia going on at the same time. To me, that's a blessing in disguise because no one's going to be watching our game. As long as Penn State takes care of its business, they're just going to see that we beat the number 19 team in the country. And we can draft off that for weeks. Even if Illinois is bad, it'll take a long time before anybody figures it out.
That's exactly right.
Kev, you talked about bringing back the middle of the Big Ten. I think that's really important for a team like Penn State, which is maybe looking at, depending on how our season goes, relying on the selection committee to get into the playoffs. You need to have a schedule that's more than 2 big games and then slop.
And of course, they don't look at the end of the season. Who did you beat that was ranked at the end of the season, right? As far as the committee's concerned, they're so dumb. Georgia Tech has a top 10 win at this point in time. So
correct.
that's how they operate. But look, Illinois, I think their schedule sets up nicely. They may end the season ranked. We'll beat them and a couple other teams, but they have a decent shot at 9-3, given the talent level still in this conference.
Right.
But I expected them to be a doormat with their quarterback coming back from last year, and they proved that that's not the case. He's taken some strides. That's the only thing to worry about a little bit, given how depleted our defense is to this point and how they looked against the likes of Bowling Green. So if there's a mildly, this may be, we thought Garrett Green with West Virginia was a great quarterback. I don't think he is. This
does not seem that way.
Luke Altmaier may be the best quarterback Penn State's played all year, and that's crazy to say.
I think that's probably right. You talk about 4 picks against Penn State last year, Mike.
Yep.
That's 4 more picks than he's thrown through 4 games so far this season. He has 10 touchdown passes, 0 interceptions. The only guy in the country with that stat line.
That's solid.
And he looks confident. And what makes me a little bit nervous, and we'll get deeper into the matchup in the next segment, but you talk about Connor Bazelak, Kev. I think when you watch that Nebraska game, you expect to see Burt come out and run basically old school Big Ten caveman ball. And Illinois looks like an offense, especially quarterbacked by the way Altmaier has played through 4 games, as if they're a team that could emulate the Bowling Green game plan.
Right.
Of roll the quarterback out, get the ball out quickly, and take advantage of some, maybe deficiencies that Penn State's defense showed against the Falcons. And again, it looks like the Nittany Lions are going to have to do it without, we know they're going to have to do it without one of their key leaders, and that's KJ Winston.
Yeah, and that hurts. The long-term injury, whatever it kind of turns out to be, I don't think they've specified.
A little ambiguous, shockingly.
And it is something that, especially after the way he opened up the season, right, at West Virginia, to lose a kid like that hurts. Right. And so now you have to figure out, what do you do? How do you replace him? And that's a challenge, right? The coaching staff has to say, what are your best options? Right? Who are your best players? Right? You always want to put the best 11 on the field when you can.
Yeah.
But how do you configure that? What do you do? Sometimes and they're not going to do this, right? But sometimes you find yourself in situations where you have to kind of bastardize things and turn yourself into a different style of defense depending on who your best 11 players are.
Well, clearly what Tom Allen wants to do is he wants to run that base 4-2-5 defense where they're using Jalen Reed as that, hybrid nickel lion position. Sure.
I think we called him a hero. When I was here. I feel like he was a hero back.
I told you that story, right? Why it's called the hero? It's because that goes back to Rip Engel, actually. And so that sort of like hybrid strong safety position used to be called the monster in football back then. Yeah. And Rip didn't like the idea of calling one of his players a monster.
That's very Penn State.
The most Penn State thing you've ever heard.
That's
right?
exactly
That's
right.
a great story.
Yes, that is so Penn State.
Yeah, it's definitely a different Illinois team than the one that came in and as a battering rod a couple years ago and beat Penn State in homecoming.
Nevertheless, I do think they have that in their DNA. They got to power back. I think, again, we'll talk more in the next segment, but I am not buying necessarily that they're going to throw first.
Right.
I think coaches have tendencies, and I think that's where Bielema is going to go with it.
No, I think you're going to pass at least 33 times. I think they're going to.
That's very specific.
They're going to ride that quarterback.
Is that an over/under, Mike?
Yeah.
We're going to get a little wager going there on the side? Yeah, no. I see you don't want that smoke. You're going to come on this show. You're going to give us these trends to treasure. You're going to give us your over/under, but you don't want to put your money where your mouth is.
No.
But other than Aller and maybe Abdul Carter, like losing Winston is possibly like the biggest, the worst thing that could have happened so far in the season. Like going into the year, secondary was a big question. Like I said, any time that a member of the Penn State secondary that also played in the Peach Bowl is on the field this year, that's a problem. And we're going to see a lot of Cam Miller on Saturday, I'm afraid, because of the injuries that we're suffering. So I don't know. I mean, we're 18-point favorites for a reason, but certainly that injury looms large, and they're still figuring out how to put the pieces together. Where do you move Abdul Carter? Where do you put people? I don't know.
And I think that's where I think a lot of it will depend on what's your opponent going to do, and that's the question mark, right? Kind of like we're talking about.
I would think the coach realizes that Penn State lost one of their best defensive players.
Oh yeah, and look, where is Jalen Reed going to play, right? If you're that lion position, right, that the star, the monster, the hero, whatever you want to call him in football, he is a big safety, a small linebacker, right? Whatever that is. And if you're Illinois, do you say, look, versus a 4-2-5, do I come out in that big personnel, right, with an extra offensive tackle out there and attack that? Because now you've got a guy that is, and I'm not saying Allen will have to be creative, right? You have to move things around, but again, you can attack a smaller personnel package with that. And then how does Penn State answer that? And vice versa, right? If they come out and all of a sudden decide they want to go empty, because look, we saw
right.
the ball, and that's the chess match, right? That's the adjustments. And I think we saw Tom Allen get kind of picked apart against Bowling Green in the first half, and they made the adjustments. And I think part of it was kicking the guys in the ass and saying, hey, let's get going. But the other part of it was we can't keep doing these same things because they're taking advantage of that.
Well, is it like you said, a 5-2?
No. Usually you have different packages in the playbook, right? Okay. Now you always, as a coach, you prefer to practice the things that you're going to play. Yeah. So there's always that hesitation of, and again, you don't know what they've practiced this week, but there's always, I'd like to think that they practiced against every offensive lineman coming out on the field at some point, right? Because Bielema has shown that he'll do that. Yes, he did. Yep. But you're going to practice, so you're going to have different packages. You always have this kind of base level of a playbook that you like to say, hey guys, if we have to play this, we can sit down on the sideline and say, we're going to play cover 2 here. We're going to play cover 3 here, tied in with this front, tied in with this package. And everybody at this level should be able to do that. Makes you a little nervous if you don't practice it, but you can't practice against everything.
You also could just run directly at Tony Rojas. You're guaranteed to stay ahead of the sticks that way because you're guaranteed to get another 3 yards after the point of contact, as we've seen in the first 2 games.
And I do think
mid-season form, Chris.
One of I'm a big Tony Rojas fan.
Me too.
I know you are.
He can't tackle.
Well,
Mike can tackle better.
So one of the things, this is not what you would consider a big physically imposing defense, right? They don't look big on the field. And so how do you attack that? You run right at them. This is a fast defense. It's an aggressive defense. It's a moving defense. When they tackle well, when they swarm to the football, they're lights out. When they don't, they have trouble. So again, I think the challenge this week for the coaching staff for Tom Allen is exactly that. Like, what are they going to do? Because Bielema will do both. And he's an old nose guard, right? You know what I mean? Like, we talked about him a little bit on the podcast, right? So he's been hitting the head a lot. You have no idea what you're going to get. Yeah. And that's the challenge this week is really like, what are you going to get? And then how do you answer whatever it is they decide to do?
You are not filling me up with a whole hell of a lot of optimism.
I know, it's all doable. I mean, it's the normal way a game goes. Like, every week you go out and you practice against something, and inevitably they come out and they find something that works against what you do, and then you have to fix it.
Well, and like I said, you don't want to have a schedule that's 2 serious games and 10 jokers, so this is probably what you want.
Absolutely. You need it. And they need to be punched in the face.
And as Chris tweeted, he's calling us negative. As Chris tweeted, this team against Kent State's not going to beat Illinois. I remember that tweet when Penn State was only up 7-0 in the middle of the second quarter against the worst team in FBS before we set the all-time yardage record in school history.
Yes, yeah. But by the way, I'm sure the descendants of those Susquehanna players were happy to find that off. So they're
Lou Prado sells ticket stub now, but he went to that game because it's not worth as much.
Sure. Yeah, well, I will say this. The Penn State offensive line is going to have to play a hell of a lot better than they did in the first quarter against the worst team in FBS last week when Kent State came in here against a pretty stout Illini defensive front. But hopefully we can up the overall positivity level in the next segment. And the perfect way to break it up is with the judge of this year's homecoming parade and the biggest fraud on the University Park campus. Here's Mike the Mailman's Trends to Treasure. We'll be right back with more of the obligatory PSU pregame show from the We Are In.
Hi everybody, Mike the Mailman here with another edition of Trends to Treasure. Last week the Trends won 3-1. Looks like the Trends are really starting to heat up. We have 4 trends for you this weekend. Here we go. First up, we have Arizona at Utah. Utah is 5-2 in the last 7 games, but are 3-0 in the last 3 home games. So the play here is Utah. Next, we go to the Big Ten. We have Michigan State hosting Ohio State. Michigan State is 0-7 in the last 7 games, 0-3 in the last 3 home games. So the play here is the Ohio State Buckeyes.
Boo!
I know. Sorry. 0-7-0. Our third trend this week is Troy versus UL Monroe. Troy is 5-1 in the last 6 games, so the play here is the Troy Trojans. Our last trend goes to the NFL. We have Buffalo at Baltimore. Baltimore is 5-1 in the last 6 games against Buffalo. So the play here, the Baltimore Ravens. And that's it for this week's Trends to Treasure. Remember, bet with your heart. Bet with your head and not with your heart. Go get them.
Professional television.
Yep.
3-1, huh, Mike?
Right on.
Yeah.
We're on.
Well done. Welcome back, everybody, to the Obligatory PSU Pregame Show. I don't know why you watch this thing, but we appreciate you being here. We're at the We Are in Philipsburg, Pennsylvania. We are thanking our segment sponsor, Concierge Medical.ai. Whether you are a pro athlete or a weekend warrior, Dr. Stephen Murphy and his team of licensed sports medicine professionals can get you back in the game. Set up an in-person or online appointment at Concierge Medical.ai. We are talking Penn State, Illinois. We are urging you all to wear white if you're coming to the game. If you're not and you know someone who is, tell them to wear white. It's not a whiteout, but it is.
Can we have that debate? Can we have that debate?
Yeah, let's do it.
How
Go ahead.
stupid is it that James Franklin can't just say, and it's not his fault, it's because the marketers are in his ear.
Yes.
Hey, we're making a second whiteout and it's this Saturday, so wear white.
So wear white.
Or you're
Yeah.
you're an ass.
It is a little weird.
It's ridiculous.
This sanctity of one whiteout per year that we're using at a noon game against UCLA, it doesn't make any sense to me. And it's not, there's old wise tales about how like the Winnipeg Jets sued Penn State back 20 years ago, which by the way is true. And then the Winnipeg Jets just said, screw it, we give up. Like, it's fine.
They're Penn State and we're the Winnipeg Jets.
There was at one point an agreement, and then Penn State directly violated the agreement, and then the hockey team was like, we're going to sue you, and Penn State said, we don't care, we're doing it anyway. And then that was the last of it.
Oh, amazing.
So why can't they just call it a whiteout?
Yeah.
I will say, though, I kind of find all the tiptoeing around it, like, it's amusing and charming
It's been
in
fun.
its own way.
It's been fun this week. There's no doubt about it. And I think it's given everyone something else to talk about, maybe a little bit more than just the normal kind of X's and O's and the nonsensical stuff that we have a tendency to complain about. Right? It's
when you got a fun season going on, I actually like to have this sort of banter online and among the fan base during the week leading up to the game. It's part of what makes it fun. There's a lot to get juiced up for this one. It's homecoming.
Yes.
It is under the lights. It's a battle of unbeatens. It's a battle of ranked teams. Number 19 coming in to face number 9. And not for nothing, we are honoring the 30th anniversary of the undefeated 1994 Rose Bowl champs.
See all the gray right there. It's the lighting. Johnny does a good job with the lighting.
He does.
To not make my hair look quite as gray as it is. But 30 years is hard to wrap your head around. So it's cool. It actually kind of married up really well, right? You know, Illinois, homecoming. You know, I'm sure at some point we'll talk about the 94 Illinois game. I don't know.
A big one.
Yeah, it was a big one. It was a huge game that
and
year.
Goon will use an opportunity to plug the Obligatory PSU podcast, which you can get wherever you get your podcasts. You and Keith Goon-Conlon did a great conversation. I've already got a lot of good feedback from it where you guys just reminisced a little bit about that game and everything leading up to it.
It's funny because that game, I was telling Mike as we were sitting in here waiting for those delicious cheesesteaks, I was very what you would consider young at the time from a football perspective and a life perspective. Obviously,
right.
I'm 50 years old now. Like I couldn't even drink a beer at that point in time. You know,
And he certainly didn't.
Exactly. I definitely never drank one.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about that. But that year was like a blur to me, right? Like it was super successful. I kept kind of getting thrown in and out of the lineup. You know, I was on the podcast, we talked about I was a 255-pound nose guard in the 90s Big Ten, right? You know, and again, I was a guy that was going to play a little bit of football at that point in time in my career. You know, when you beat Ohio State by 50 points, you get to play in those games, that kind of deal. But because of injuries, because we were on the field, like Goon talked about, I hadn't really thought about that because of how fast that offense scored. We were on the field a lot. We were beat up in the secondary. We were beat up. You know, Chuck Penzinik, who's a good friend of mine, ended up getting a couple interceptions in the Rose Bowl. But again, he was a guy just like me that was young, got thrown into playing a lot of football that year. So that year was a blur for me. Guys like Goon, Kerry Collins, Kyle, they have great memories of that year because I think they were a little bit more secure in what was going on, right? I was just holding on for dear life.
My favorite part, the story that Goon told, Goon will tell a new story every time you see me. We've talked about it ad nauseum for hours about it. Was everyone knows that the Illinois sabotaged the hotel in Champaign.
Yes.
The power went out or whatever. And so there was no elevators. And Joe would not let you go up and down the stairs.
He wouldn't.
And Goon had to lie and be like, "Oh, well, I left my homework up in the room."
History books.
History
yes.
books. Yeah. And so they made the managers
That was
go,
the best lie you could come up with.
I was, you know what?
what kind of crap did he have up in there that he didn't want Joe to see?
Exactly right.
Probably some food. I mean, at the end of the day, that's probably what he had. Like those guys had to stay small, right? They were, and he talked about it on the podcast too, right? It was a different deal. They were tall, athletic, lean, whereas the Big Ten was very big and bulky. Again, why 255-pound nose guard? Not great.
Yeah.
Not a great idea at that point in the Big Ten, but it was an amazing year, and I think it's really cool. We got 75 guys coming up apparently for the weekend.
Yeah, very cool.
I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah, so this is like the perfectly appropriate opponent
Absolutely.
to have in Beaver Stadium to honor the 94 team, because that was really the inflection point of that season.
Yeah.
For as big as the Michigan game one.
And even the Rose Bowl.
Yeah.
Like that game, that's the game that people talk about when they talk about it.
Because that's when you were really up against it. Like that game in Ann Arbor was tight.
It was that was a good, like, old school classic back and forth football game.
Yeah.
Illinois was like, oh no, like we're going to lose this football game.
But if you talk to an old school Penn State football fan and you talk to them about the drive, they know exactly what you're talking about, where they were when it happened, who they watched it with, and can probably tell you about a few of the plays.
Yep.
So yeah, pretty appropriate, pretty fun.
This is one of my favorite media moments of this week. Actually, it was probably my favorite media moment. Was when they asked Drew Lard, what does the 94 team mean to you and in the building or whatever? He gave this very nice, eloquent answer. I love having the guys up there. I love having the guys in the building. That's a very important team to this school, and we build on them. And then someone didn't get, I think it was Rich Scarcella, didn't understand that he had just suffered through that answer. And Rich was like, who are your favorite 94 guys that you love seeing around the building? And it was like asking, I don't mean to be political. This is not a criticism of the man. It's like asking Trump who his favorite book was. and Drew's like, all of them. I love all of them. They're all great. They're all great.
Wait, he said, I love all of them?
That's amazing. That's tough.
And the lackey's like, all right, that's all.
That's it. Cut.
That reminds me.
So Drew really appreciates you.
I know he does. I know he does.
That reminds me of when Bill O'Brien was getting interviewed live on the Big Ten Network after some of the sanctions got rolled back because we had supposedly implemented some of the recommendations.
Right.
And of course, the whole thing was a complete farce. Everybody involved knew it, except the interviewer. So Bill O'Brien's on to talk about how excited he is that these sanctions are getting rolled back. And he's like, oh, yeah, we've implemented over 180 different recommendations from the report. We're really making progress. We're proud of it. And so the interviewer just very innocently and earnestly asks him, like, oh, coach, you talk about these 180 recommendations that were implemented. Could you give us an example of a few of the most important ones? I have never seen Bill more terrified in my life. There was like a pregnant pause that to me felt like 10 seconds long. And Bill says, well, again, over 180 recommendations. He's really proud to be moving forward, making progress.
Yeah, like Keith Master hand him an index card right before the interview. Like, this is the number. Say the number. Yeah, just leaving the poor kid out to dry. I love them all.
Okay, so before we get back to this year's Illinois team, I want to cap the 94 discussion, and we're so thrilled to have those guys back in the Nittany Valley and inside Beaver Stadium to be honored. There's been some talk this week. I've been a part of it. Should we just pull the trigger? Give the New York Times their flowers and declare this a national championship, an officially recognized title for Paterno and Penn State. Mike the Mailman, yes or no?
Absolutely.
And why do you say that?
They were the best team I've ever seen here at Penn State. Definitely by far the best team. I mean, defensively and offensively.
You're such a you're a liar.
He
says he never drank a beer before he was 21.
He said that.
But they got the ball. And it just unbelievable.
It was unbelievable.
Noble sits next to me, says he's never drank a beer before he's 21, and he's still not the biggest liar on the set.
I was at the Rose Bowl that year, and when Kajana went to touchdown on the first or second play, I stood up. I was in the Oregon section. I stood up. Boys and girls, you're going to hear this voice all day. I got booed like crazy, but it was fun to say that because when I started, and then
the Oregon section, huh?
It was a good time. Yeah. I was young.
If anybody could pull that off, you can. They probably loved them by the end of it.
They get smack talk by Mike the Mailman.
They gave you all those duck things or whatever.
Oh, you don't go to me before Brandon.
Okay. All right. Fine. No. Go.
Yeah. I mean, yes.
This is a journey for you, right?
Yeah. And it's hard to even wrap your head around. I've like Keith talked about it. He did a really good job talking about it, and I hadn't really thought through it. I've always considered us.
Sure.
Look, I've said it for years. I've been on the football field for 38 years. I've been undefeated one time. I've played on really good football teams. I've been on really bad football teams, like all of that. But like 38 years as a player and a coach, from 12 years old to 50, right? And one time I went undefeated. That is so hard to do. And we talk about a lot, winning 10 games. Look, and I know that we all like to beat James up every once in a while, and I talk about how hard it is to win 10 games, right? But to win them all, right, and then not be the national champion, right, to not get the thing that you've been going after was very difficult. And like we've talked about a lot, the Rose Bowl locker room was really weird. It was really anticlimactic, right? You go out there, you win that football game, and you go back in that locker room, everybody knows, right? It's not there. So I do think that if there was a way to do it, if Penn State would recognize it, however that works, I don't care. It would be really cool. I think we all know the guys that played on that team, how special that group was. Mike, like you said, to me, that's the best offense that's ever been on a college football field. From top to bottom, from the first team to the second team at some positions, like that was absolutely ridiculous. And so, I think if they put it up there, it'd be great. I think Goon said if we wanted to get resized for rings, like I wear one ring, but I don't know that I'd wear it. My daughter would probably steal it, but at the end of the day, it'd be cool to give it to her.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Do the right thing. Pat, what do you think?
It's like the only thing that you, Goon, and Mike the Mailman agree with the New York Times on, right? National champions. That's right.
Unifying America.
Exactly. I like it. Bring us all together.
I tend to agree. I enjoy being able to make fun of Pitt for like claiming national championships when they went like 2-0 against Duquesne and Stony Brook in like 1980 or 1910.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's fun to make fun of them for doing that, right? Penn State's had 11 undefeated seasons.
That's crazy.
And one national championship of those 11. Right? 2 total, but only one undefeated national championship season. So I'd say screw it. Claim them all. 12-time national championship, Penn State, and then you guys would get the new rings, and then Chuck Vicini would get a couple from the Penn State won 30 in a row.
Yeah.
In the late 60s, and not one title. They didn't even have a chance to play for the title.
Including a team that had 5 college football Hall of Famers on it on one roster.
And before the 80s, it was essentially, I don't know when until like the mid 70s, the national championship was awarded before the bowl game.
Yeah.
right.
And by the way, everyone still played in the bowl games despite that, but before the bowl game.
That's right.
So it was fraudulent all along.
Yeah.
So screw it. Claim all 11, or I guess it'd be 12, and then call it a day.
That's a perfect transition because when you say speaking of fraudulent, our next segment coming up features Mike the Mailman. So that's beautiful.
Yeah.
So Mike, every year when you go to Penn State Football Media Day, one of the things that is unfortunate, we have so much good material that gets left on the cutting room floor. And I thought there's been a running theme in your interviews over the years. You like to ask the guys about their favorite cookies.
Oh, yeah.
So you have had this running interaction now with the Clifford brothers about does their mom or does she not send them cookies? And I thought in honor of Liam's first receiving touchdown last weekend, we'd feature that. So check that out. We'll be back with more right after this.
I remember asking your brother this question. I was really surprised at his answer. I said, "Has your mom ever sent you any cookies?" Or?
No, my mom doesn't send it. I gotta make my own cookies nowadays. If I want a cookie, I gotta make my own.
Does your mother send cookies to you during the season? And he said no. Is that true?
I remember you said that, because I said, "What's your favorite cookie?" I said, "Your mom probably sends you some." You said, "No, he never sends you cookies." Has that turned around at all?
No. My mom doesn't send me cookies because I don't need cookies. I definitely do not need any cookies. I'm trying to watch my figure.
Well,
if I needed some cookies, my mom is very loving and supportive, and she would definitely send me some cookies.
And I remember
That is true. She doesn't send us cookies, but my mom and my dad make sure they get to every game. And especially with my brother playing as well, sometimes it's tough to try to balance that schedule, but they do, whether they got to get up Friday, drive here, watch my game Saturday, and then go to Green Bay Sunday. They've always done anything they can to get all the games, so that's better than getting cookies. So I'd rather have them here than that.
Good kids.
Thank you. It was fun. It was a good time.
I love the Cliffords. All right, folks, welcome back to the Obligatory PSU Pregame Show. Thanks to our hosts all season long that we are in, and thanks to our official beer provider and the sponsor of our random number generator segment all season long, the good folks at Anti-Fragile Brewing Company. They've really got it going on, as we have told you. There are essentially nothing bad to say about what Anti-Fragile has going on. I mean, it's a full bar, in Calder Way, in the middle of heart of downtown State College. Great beer. You got the great Uncle John's cheesesteaks.
Yeah.
And if you're a kombucha drinker, you know they got the Moody Culture kombucha. A lot of good stuff. Really can't thank the good folks at Anti-Fragile enough. Check them out when you're in town. Check them out online. It's good stuff.
You drink kombucha?
From time to time.
Gives me gas, man.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing. Appreciate that.
Not Anti-Fragile stuff.
No.
Not
I just drink the beer down there, man. I have not tried the kombucha. That's what made me think about it. I was like, maybe I should buy some. I'm in town, but I got to get on an airplane on Saturday morning. That may not be a great idea.
It's my perfect spot, right? Because it's a little ups. Like the bar is very nice.
Yeah.
It seems upscale, but then they got like 4 games going on the screen at all times. Like they did a lot of live music in their beginning and stuff like that, and they're like, give the people in State College what they want: football on the screen all day.
The other thing, just to completely derail the conversation,
Please do.
there's no parking down there anymore.
Was there ever?
Well, there was a
that
parking lot.
Yeah.
Now
it's a
I
building.
walked around the corner. I walked around the corner. Gracie and I were walking around the first time I just got back from Germany, and they were building that apartment when I left. Right, so Gracie lived at Center Court. I'm walking around, and we come around the Lions Den, right, and then I just look up, and you're just like, and it stopped me in my tracks. Like it really did.
Yeah.
And then I went back to pick up some beer for the show at Anti-Fragile, and I drove around looking for parking, because the parking lot was gone.
That's an amazing building. So this is like State College Towny stuff. They build all these high rises with the requirement that 20% of the square footage be retail. Except for they don't care about the retail space. They just let it sit vacant. They make enough money on the other stuff. But that retail space in the building you're talking about, which the name has changed, I don't know how many times at this point. They've got a great Mexican place, but and a great Jewish. It's funny. The only place you get a Mexican place, a Jewish deli, and a Buffalo Wild Wings,
right next
back to back to back. The Wild Wings is still coming in over the summer, but it's it's an interesting. I miss the parking lot.
I do too. I miss the parking lot.
Every local State College drunk. Remember, there used to be that little bank there.
Absolutely.
But the fence was so low and so rusty and dark. Everyone fell on their face at some point walking back in that way.
You could warm up in the ATM because it had an enclosed ATM, right? So it was really cold outside. You could stop in there and warm. If somebody had the right card to get in there, you could stand in there for a second. Warm up, thaw out, and then get rolled.
But another thing, you can definitely find parking in downtown State College. When people say, I can't go downtown because I can't find parking. That means you have not lived here for long enough, because I have not gone. It can be the busiest football weekend of all time. 5 minutes, doesn't matter. You go back in the Highlands, park in front of some borough council members' front yards on the street. It's free all weekend. There's the 2-hour parking is not enforced on football weekends. You can find a place to park and go to Anti-Fragile. People say, I can't find a place to park, so don't go downtown. We don't want you downtown. It's easy to find a place to park close to Anti-Fragile every time.
Don't give away all your secrets, Kevin.
Well, Mike, you know what the secret? Mike just parks at the post office downtown and says, I know they know they're not going to tow me because I have a vanity license plate.
They haven't towed anyone in 50 years.
Imagine the press they'd get if we towed Mike the mailman's car. Yeah.
The bottom line is, if you have not been back to State College in a while, unless it's Old Main, the corner room, or McClanahan's, the thing you remember being there is gone, and there's a high-rise apartment complex there now instead.
But it's still amazing.
You know, I appreciated where that segment went, because if anybody comes to this program for in-depth football analysis, they are foolish. They're beyond help.
Yeah.
On the other hand, if you come to this show for the reason anybody really cares about any of this stuff, which is the feeling you have for team and school and place and the ones you share it with, that's what it's all about. This is homecoming. And that's one of the things I love. I love watching people come back into Happy Valley right now who haven't been there for a while, and their minds are just blown by how much it has changed and how much it's the same. And so before we do random number generator and pick this game, let's talk about something that has changed but has been the same for a very long time, and that's the Penn State football team's uniform. You like that pivot?
That was good. Well done.
Yeah, thank you.
Because I threw a couple curveballs.
I loved it. Well done.
Good one.
So we're wearing these Generation of Greatness uniforms, again, as we've kind of taken to doing in homecoming. They do the special end zones. They have the little bits and pieces of Penn State uniform history built in, the stripes on the pants and the numbers on the helmets, the gray face masks. I have tended to be, throughout my life, a Penn State uniform purist. I like the idea that whenever you turn on a Penn State game, you know who's playing. And I also like the idea that in an age where everybody's doing multiple different uniforms. The only way you can distinguish yourself is by sticking to your guns and sticking to your identity. You know, the Yankees don't need an alternate uniform, neither do the Nittany Lions. I'm okay with this one, but I'm curious. How do you guys feel about this Generations of Greatness uniform? Mike the Mailman, you like it?
Well, yeah.
You're an old school guy.
Yeah, I like it, but I'm with you. I like the old, the traditional, no frills. I like.
Don't mess with perfection.
That's right. Absolutely.
Yeah. But you're okay with it.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's all right. Yeah.
What's hilarious to me is this is our throwback uniform game, and there's really no difference. Like what's different about it? That's the funniest part about it. Yeah, the uniform stuff's hilarious. Spider, the old equipment manager that still works up in the suites there at Beaver Stadium, has some great stories about how like Coach Paterno literally threatened to like not play in bowl games if they required that they stitch the bowl patch on the uniform. Like there's some great stories about that.
But we did put a swoosh, and I was here for that. And that was, Bucky Grilly and the boys were not happy about the swoosh, right? So he didn't want the patch, but the swoosh,
So
that was a different story.
how much do you guys get for that?
Oh, well, yeah.
That was before any of that.
Well, you know, Joe was getting paid like $10,000.
I know, right? And he got to go on a cruise. We didn't want to begrudge him the cruise, but it is. Yeah, I mean, look, it's the best uniform in college football. It is. I mean, no doubt.
We are no less than 2 seasons away from having the QR code for Happy Valley United on one side and the Sheets logo on the other side. And
we are in right across the front.
I hope that the Generations of Greatness game. Like
sorry, Pat, I couldn't get behind it. Could not get behind it. Yeah.
The throwback uniform game 5 years from now will be taking like the Sheets patch off and the QR code off, and that'll be great.
Okay, I got to get us into random number generator. We're all pink and blacked out on the show today. We're homecoming, pink and black, alternate uniform ever. Yes or no, Kevin Horn?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah.
All right.
That's old school, man.
Brandon Noble.
No.
You make him cut it off right here on the belly.
Is this you don't want to wear pink?
I don't want. No. I don't want to open the door to that.
Okay. All right. Mike the Mailman, pink and black uniform.
I like pink and black.
So you'd be okay with it?
Absolutely.
Okay, I am kind of on the fence on this one. I would have been a hard no up until just recently. And again, like college football in its present state is so thoroughly bastardized that I'm not sure I care anymore.
Yeah.
So it's my segment. I'm the fake host. I'm going to say maybe.
Okay,
how's that?
fair. Nice
I'm going
work.
to sit on the fence.
Well done.
But I'm not going to sit on the fence for the random number generator segment. Mike the Mailman, we're going to start with you because the Nittany Lions are somewhat inexplicably in my mind 18-point favorites in this one, or somewhere thereabouts. You like Penn State to cover in this one? Give me a randomly generated number.
Penn State will win by 4 touchdowns.
4 TDs.
You know, he's never generated numbers.
Yes.
No, he doesn't follow directions.
But I didn't last week, and see what happened.
Is that why the mail doesn't go anywhere?
This is your civil servants at work, everybody. Yeah, absolutely.
4 touchdowns.
You let Penn State to win
code?
big. Okay, tell me why, other than the fact that you're Mike the Mailman.
Well, I think going back to the '94 team, I think the Penn State offense will run back and forth and wear out the Illinois defense. So I think it's going to be easy.
4 touchdowns.
Now, you and I are in agreement that the Big Ten is not a good conference this year.
Yep.
So you and I talked a little bit. You think that game last week was fool's gold because Nebraska and Illinois are both bad?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's only 4 good teams in the Big Ten in this order: Penn State, Oregon, Ohio State, and Michigan.
In that order.
I love it.
In that order.
Michigan.
I love it.
Mike, you could be their quarterback.
I got to recover from that. Kevin, go ahead.
So the pessimist of me is like, let's pick a close game. Let's pick it within a touchdown or less. Mike knows when the eyeball test, without looking at any analytics, when the eyeball test says Penn State should be favored by a touchdown or so, and then the line comes out at 17.5 and gets bought up to 18, what does that tell you? Take the side that you're astonished is getting that many points.
Yep.
Every time.
That'll happen every
right?
time. Yep.
And so I'm going to, knowing nothing, obviously you guys know that by now, knowing nothing, 42-24, Penn State, only because of that Vegas line, which is insane. Like, I thought it was going to be a 7.5, maybe 8.5, depending, night game, maybe 9. It came out, I'm like, well, now Penn State's going to blow them out. Thank goodness Vegas did that, because now we're going to win. And that's all that matters.
I think the atmosphere helps. I think the talent differential helps. I said before the West Virginia game, talent will out in college football, and Penn State has the decisive edge there. I do like the way Drew Aller is playing right now. He's playing like the best quarterback in the conference. Let's call it for what it is. Yeah. And as well as Luke Altmaier has played, he's not Drew Aller, right?
No.
So conversely, as I said, I don't know that I'm buying that Illinois is going to come out and throw the ball all over the yard. I don't know they're going to attempt 33 passes because I think that Bert's got a type and coaches have tendencies and they're going to do what they do. And that guy loves to play smash mouth football. Yes, it's what he's done versus the Nittany Lions every time he's beaten us, whether it's been with the Badgers or with the Illini. We all know that horrific 9 overtime game in 2021. I understand it's different teams, but I think he's going to try to win that one. I think Penn State is going to win. I don't think they're going to cover. I'm going to take the Nittany Lions to win this one 28-17. Brandon Noble, honoring the 1994 team. You get to go last. Go ahead.
Thank you. I agree. Yeah, you were very close to what my random numbers were going to be.
Well, it's random.
So I think that you're exactly part of the way that you beat a team that has a better offense than you do is you control the football, right? And that's one thing that he wants to do and likes to do. I do think they come out and they try and run the football early. If Penn State can get ahead, I think that goes out the window eventually, but I think he'll stick with it. So I'm going to go 36-17, Penn State.
Andy Kotelnicki with the same athletes who are getting kicked all over the field at Kansas this season, absolutely rung up the score against Illinois last season. So let's see what he can do with Tyler Warren and Nick Singleton and Drew Aller and the rest this week. Boys, it has been an absolute pleasure, as it always is. Thanks to our hosts at the We Are In, Mike the Mailman, Kevin Horn, Brandon Noble, the 1994 national champion Nittany Lions. Thanks so much. It's been a pleasure. Folks, enjoy homecoming and wear white. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your followers. We are